Bonjour tout le monde, I'm Diane. Welcome back to We in France. And I've called France home since 2012, and I've never done a video on things I do not miss from the United States. So that's what we're getting into in today's video. Now, before my mom passed away, Tom and I would visit family in the US somewhat regularly, but we would never spend more than about a week or 10 days there. And over the course of 9 years, we actually never stayed for more than a week or so stateside at any given time. But that all changed once my mom started getting really sick in 2020, 2021. And after she and my sweet dog, Dagny, there passed away, I started spending more time in the US, over a month at a time in some cases. So I am quite in tune with what life is like there, especially Florida and New Jersey in 2024. I've been back and forth a bit over the past 2.5 years, and I have had a lot of time to reflect on the good and the bad, what I love and what I don't love about my homeland. So here are 5 things that I do not miss about life in the US after having lived in France. Number 1, pharmaceutical ads on TV. These things drive me crazy, and truth be told, I don't watch a ton of TV. I watch more streaming services and that sort of thing, but the last time I was in Florida, the amount of these slick drug ads on TV shocked me. I have to say, I watched Jeopardy! Wheel of Fortune with my dad, and in one commercial break, I counted 3, maybe even 4 drug ads, and I thought this was a joke. I looked at my dad like, what's going on? He was like, no, that's normal. And it blew my mind. And, by the end of that trip, I knew not only the drug names and what they were for, but the catchy little jingles. They got stuck in my head, like the Ozempic.
Are you not ashamed of yourself?
Like, I'm ashamed that I know that.
Oh, okay.
But they are catchy. You will see everything from medication for psoriasis and depression, diabetes, what else? Eczema, and even Botox. This stuff dominated my TV screen in a slick, well-produced vignette. And that was the tip of the iceberg. What really got me were all the side effects that they rattled off. It was almost comical. Bleeding, weight gain, headaches, your arm falling off, death, crazy stuff. And personally speaking, I'm not a big fan of big pharma in general, especially after losing my mom to cancer, seeing the exorbitant drug costs and just the joke of that whole system. So that turned me off even more. Profits should never weigh out over people, but I'll save that for another day. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole. My point here is this, is that drug ads are unnecessary and jarring. You will never see them on TV in France or anywhere, I believe, but the United States and New Zealand, where they are also legal. And the reason why you won't see them in France in magazines, on TV, at bus stops, it's because that is not legal in France. And good luck telling a French doctor what medicine you think they should prescribe for you because you saw it on TV. No, that doesn't exist. In France, you're not going to see this direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertising, and I personally feel that is how it should be. Enough is enough. Stop with these ridiculous drug ads on American TV. Let your doctor recommend a drug. Let them use their experience or research it on your own. We don't need these drug ads shoved down our throats. P.S. Also in France, you will not see personal injury lawyer ads or plastic surgery commercials either. All right, number 2, hustle culture. Now, the hustle is real. In the US, I'm sure you felt it. There is this relentless pressure to grind 24/7, to be that star employee who goes above and beyond, to have a side hustle on top of the main hustle, to have 2 part-time jobs, maybe 3. That fear of missing out, that FOMO to be enough, is there. And if France has taught me anything, it's taught me that it's possible to have a healthy work-life balance. And I feel this stands in stark contrast to the hustle culture in the United States. In France, I feel that people prioritize taking breaks, enjoying their life outside of work, and work not being their entire identity. And don't get me wrong, there is a work ethic in France, and there are systems in place that allow French people to maybe not have to hustle. But the French are not lazy. I made a video about that here. And it certainly doesn't feel like you're on this hamster wheel where you're perpetually condemned to spin. And if you are spinning, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is called your vacation. Plus, this is a very important plus, the fact that healthcare in France, I mention this a lot because it is important. Healthcare is a basic human right, and it is not connected to your employment status. And when you have something like that, it takes a whole lot of stress off not having to work yourself to the bone just to afford basic medical care. It's kind of a weight lifted off your shoulders. And it always surprises people to learn that in France, all employees get 5 weeks 5 weeks of paid vacation each year that they're expected to use in addition to public holidays. And French people, many Europeans actually, they will take off for 2-3 weeks, even some people, depending on the industry, maybe even the whole month. And that is fine. The company doesn't fall apart. The country doesn't fall apart. And fun fact, just in contrast, I almost got fired when I booked a 2-week trip to New Zealand early in my career back in New York City. Despite having enough PTO, that just wasn't done, a 2-week trip. Now, time off in France, it is a basic right and the law. It is not a perk of working for a good employer. And unfortunately, in the US, there is no federal law regulating paid vacation minimums. Now, some companies do offer generous PTO as a benefit for working for a good employer, but it's not required by law at all. And that's the point I want to make here is that, a lot of people are going to tell me in the comments, oh, I get a ton of vacation in the US. Right. But that's because of your employer. It is not federal law. That is all to say that hustle culture, it is not felt as strongly in France, and I think that's a good thing. At least it's something I personally vibe with, that lack of hustle culture. And something else that hustle culture doesn't prioritize is sleep, something I love. I love my sleep. So to help you sleep better, let me introduce you to today's sponsor, Manta Sleep, the company that makes the world's best sleep masks and functional sleep accessories. Better sleep leads to a better life. So if you've been having trouble sleeping, maybe because of your partner's phone screen glowing in your face, a street light outside your window, travel, or just the stress of everyday life, I know how elusive a good night's sleep can be, and I have the perfect solution for that. First off, this Manta Sleep Pro Mask and many of the brand's other masks block out absolutely all light so you can sleep more deeply, and it's adjustable for all head sizes with this Velcro right here, with this Velcro strap. And I love how the C-shaped eye cups, they're gentle, they're comfy, and they are ideal for side sleepers with absolutely no pressure on your eyes or lashes. And the mask is also made of breathable premium material, so you won't wake up feeling like you slept in a sauna. Something else I love about Manta Sleep is their pro nap movement. It's all about opting out of counterproductive, nap-shaming hustle culture nonsense and reclaiming what should have always been yours in the first place, your vitality. Naps are so restorative. I've always been a napper personally. Yes, even as an adult. They give you more energy, more focus, more strength that can get you through the day. And naps are even better with the quality sleep mask from Manta Sleep. Join me, let's make sleepless nights a thing of the past. So go ahead, click my link below and use code WEINFRANCE for 10% off your Manta Sleep Mask today. Seriously, your eyes and your sanity will thank you. Now back to the video. Okay, number 3, spammer and scammer calls. Last time I visited my dad, he would get a handful of these scammy calls a day. And he said it was a normal occurrence that his cell phone would ring with like an unknown number. And once he realizes it's a scammer, he will mess with them. And it actually became my nightly entertainment. My dad is pretty funny. Everything from fake Geek Squad and Microsoft calls to Medicare scams that prey on senior citizens and even people selling solar panels. Americans are being preyed on, and I hate that. A friend of my dad's recently told us that he had a relative who got scammed out of $70,000. Yeah. Now, scam calls, they're a common nuisance, and they often come from fraudsters posing as authorities or service providers, as actual people from companies, but they're not. And if you know it's a scam call, you can block the number, but they always seem to change numbers using voice over internet protocols. They call back despite your best attempts to get rid of them, because Lord knows my dad has tried. And I want to know if you get these calls, if you've ever been scammed or almost scammed. I hope not. But let me know in the comments. I know it's not just my dad. But a lot of these scams actually originate out of Indian call centers. There's some YouTube channels that mess with them and try to get revenge. I'll link them down below. And while scams absolutely do exist in France, I've been scammed. It was an eBay scam. Have to let me know if you want to hear more about that. But the scam calls in France, they are not on the same level at all. And one reason for this is that these scammers in India, they don't speak French. So they target the English-speaking market instead, more like North America, UK. Now, you do have to keep an eye out, though, especially for scammy phishing text messages and email scams in France, but scammers have taken it to the next level in the US. I personally don't get nightly scammer calls in France. I don't think most people do, or at least I haven't figured out my French number yet. So that's a win-win. There's stricter regulation here in France. There's stricter enforcement, and that all plays a role in reducing these types of intrusions in France. And you can also sign up to have your number added to something called Blocktel, and that helps protect consumers by blocking unwanted commercial calls, not necessarily scammers. Now, funny story time. As I told you, my dad was getting a lot of these calls, and one night during dinner when we were there eating, he kept getting interrupted by like this persistent scammer. It must have been the fifth call, and I decided to take my dad's lead and like mess with them too. I wanted to see if I could get rid of him once and for all. So I put on my best voiceover sounding voice, like stood up so I can give this my best shot, and I cheerily said, "Thank you for calling the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Please note that your location and phone number have been forwarded to a federal agent to better expedite your call. To speak to an agent now, please press 1. To get an update on a previous case, please press 2. And for all other inquiries, press 3. I just stuttered there, but in the actual thing, I actually pulled it off. I didn't mess up. I just pulled that right out of my head. And guess what? It worked. We never heard from him again. Nice job. All right, number 4, guns in public. I don't want to make this political. That's not what my channel's about, but this needs to be said. It is a very real part of my list of things I don't miss from the US list. And it is a safety thing for me. That's what it comes down to. There is a certain level of anxiety that comes with knowing the person next to you in line at the grocery store could be packing heat. Now, Florida, where my family now lives, it is a concealed carry state, meaning that people can and do have weapons on their person and in their vehicles. Other states in the United States are open carry, meaning you can see the weapon on the person. And then there are other states, where I grew up, in New Jersey, where gun laws were much more strict, and there was no concealed or open carry, nothing like that. Now, believe it or not, my dad and I got an Uber ride in Florida. We were going to the airport, and we chatted with our female driver over the course of the ride, and she told us, and then showed us, that she had a gun, legal, wrapped in a towel that she had tucked into her driver's side door, just in case. That is something you would never see in France. In France, it is refreshing, in my opinion, to know that civilians aren't legally allowed to carry firearms around in public. The guy behind you at the grocery store is not going to have a weapon that's going to be accidentally or purposely discharged. Gun legislation here is highly regulated, and that's a good thing. All right, number 5, over-the-top tipping. I've talked about this before. I appreciate good service. I think tips are appropriate in a lot of cases. I happily tip my nail tech in the US, a server, housekeeping. I tip big. In the US, it's normal to tip a server 20% when you go out to eat. But I feel that tips should not be a replacement for an employer paying an employee a living wage. And I feel since I moved out of the US, every time I go back, I feel the American tipping culture is like this game of never-ending chance. You know, did you tip enough? Did you tip too much? Should I tip more? Should I tip the barista for making coffee or the cashier? Or what about when you order on the Starbucks app? Do you tip? I don't know. It seems like there's this expectation now to tip that wasn't so blatant a decade ago. Definitely not when I was a kid. And then, you know, the consumers get fed up with all of this and stiff the waiter. It's not the waiter's fault. My take is don't hate the player, hate the game. You know, it's just what's been instituted as a norm. And then something else that I've seen actually on my last trip to the US, if you are not looking closely enough at your bill, even for small parties, we were just 3 people, there was an auto gratuity of 18% added to the bill. So our waiter pointed it out. Thank you, sir. We appreciated that, but sometimes waiters won't point it out. And if you're not expecting it, you're not looking closely, you'll end up tipping twice. Now that's there, obviously, because people don't always tip. People are fed up. But again, it's not the waiter's fault. Now, to contrast that with France, in France, tipping is a courtesy. It does exist. Some people do tip, but it's not an obligation, and it's nowhere near 20% out at a restaurant. Prices are clear. You know exactly what you're paying ahead of time. Servers are paid a living wage and they have work contracts. So no, it's not a highly paid job, but they know what they're being paid every month. It's not the customer's responsibility to make up the difference so the person can pay their bills every month. And I feel like there's a better way for employees and employers to do the whole tipping thing in the US. I don't know. But as I always say, there is no perfect place to live. No system has it all together. Everywhere has its share of pros and cons, and I think we need to make the best out of wherever we choose to call home. Change what we're able to change, advocate for what we want to advocate for, focus on what we enjoy, and make peace with the rest. That is really the best we can do. The US will always be my first home. There are so many things I love and miss about it. I wouldn't trade my American upbringing, my childhood, for anything. I loved growing up in suburban New Jersey, but living abroad has definitely opened my eyes to a different way of life. And I've always felt that a little self-reflection and a healthy dose of humor never hurt anyone, right? I hope you agree. As always, thank you for being here. And thank you to Manta Sleep for partnering with me for this video. And I will see you back here on We in France soon. Salut!